Hey, it's Andrea with Doing Business as Yourself. Today I have a question. I'm starting to get questions, and that's awesome because it gives me a place, like a jumping off place, to actually be bringing people value that they're really actually looking for instead of me kind of, showing what I'm doing and kind of second guessing what people are actually wanting to know. Ask questions, put them in the comments, send me a private message, hit me up on Facebook, whatever you want to do. But questions are awesome. And so here's the one that I had this morning. Now, just as a little tiny bit of backstory, this is actually as much connected to human design as it is to doing business as yourself, because it's specific. The person who asked me is a projector. I'm a projector. If you don't know what any of this means, you can get your chart done. I can put a link you can get your chart printed. Like, you can get the chart generated, but then to read it is like this whole other, like, onion peeling experience. Yeah, that's the right word. Anyway, so this woman asked me this morning, how do you combat bitterness when you see someone else doing what you're doing and you know that you're better at it, and because of being a projector, our approach is different, and I can't be like, hey, come hire me, and there's this manifesting generator who's kicking ass doing the same thing that I want to do. So that's kind of like a big old compound question, right? So there's a lot of parts to this. So the big question, the first question, which I don't actually think is the real question, but how do you combat bitterness? When you see someone else, whatever, blah, 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 you know you can do better, you know better. Okay, so there's this thing about projectors. Projectors are here to guide other people's energy mostly. So becoming someone that, like, a go-to person for, like, this is a perfect example. This is a perfect example. Someone had a question, came specifically to me, asked that question, and knows enough about me and is inviting me to answer it. Have some input on their life or their situation that came up. So projectors, sort of the directive for projectors is to wait to be invited. And as much as being invited, it's also about being recognized as someone who will have value to add, I guess is the way to describe this. So my first thought is, to answer your question specifically, how do you combat bitterness? I think that noticing is half the battle, right? So I don't know that we're even necessarily here to combat something. So I'm answering like half the battle is we're combating. I don't know if that's really the thing. I think that noticing is, I don't know what a better phrase is. I mean, some of this is sort of like jargon that we're used to using. But if you're struggling against something, it's just going to push back. So if there's a way to, I don't know if you're looking for like specific, like, what can I do in the moment? Like, should I be like stopping to meditate, or should I be, going and having a cheeseburger, or, I don't know what it is that what it is that would be like the direct answer to your question. But one of the things that I know to be true is that you need to find something that lets it, like a mindset shift of sorts, that lets things, you get to watch this stuff. Yeah, I'm bitter. Okay, I'm watching it. And, what am I going to do with that now? I think it's the question, not so much like trying to avoid it or trying to battle it, which brings me to my second point. I want to encourage you, and also other people who experience this stuff, to make sure that you're not judging yourself or the bitterness around what it is you're seeing and thinking, and just not to judge yourself. It's not good or bad. It's really more of a signpost that we can use. Like, I still bump into bitterness, even though I think I'm sort of free of it, la la la. But when it crops up, I'm like, holy, what is that about? Like, it's a thing that you can look at and wonder about, what is it that I can do? I wonder, what is it that I could be doing differently? What is it that I I'm really responding to, and usually it's about not being recognized, you know. So the second part of your question is more, I think, about how can I be marketing, or how can I be, putting myself in a position to be recognized, and that's sort of a different conversation. But let me finish with this. So the signpost, and this is bitterness for projectors. For generators, it's frustration. So if you're having frustration, it's a signpost. It's not like necessarily something to be reactive against. It's something to kind of notice. And this is really frustrating me. What could I be doing differently? How could I be, positioning myself with different people, or noticing different things, or just letting it wash through me and be done. Knowing that it's going to come to an end too. You're not going to stay bitter forever unless you don't sort of look at this stuff. And then I think there is a potential to stay bitter forever, or frustrated forever, or angry if you're a manifestor forever, or disappointed. All of those four keynotes are the not self. Hey, let's see what's going on in this situation. They're like a signpost. It's like a it's a thing to say, okay, ooh, there's bitterness, there's anger, there's frustration, there's disappointment. What's going on exactly? What's the story that's going on for me? Sometimes an adjustment in perspective, or how you're spending your time, or even recognizing the sort of energy and people that you're around. This is stuff that I wrote down. Allowing into your life, it might, and what that impact might be having on you. Things to consider. Nothing to fix necessarily, but things to consider, and maybe make different choices going forward. It's possibly also a decent time to think about how the not self themes of any of your open centers that you have in your chart are possibly involved in this scenario. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read off. So there's 9, for anybody who's not human design familiar, there's 9 energy centers. They're sort of like chakras, but not really, because there's 2 extra, and it's not a direct correlation. Close, but not quite. So there's the head center, which is occupied with questions that don't matter if it's undefined, or can be. Am I being occupied with questions that don't matter, that aren't relevant to my, my forward motion, my personal existence? Maybe, maybe not. Ajna center, which is the second triangle down. If you're looking at the chart now, I should be able to put this into the video. Or there's a link below for the chart. Are you pretending that you're mentally certain? Is another question to ask. This one is tricky for me, and it might be because I'm defined there, but I see it at work at work. I see it active in I have a daughter who has an undefined ajna, and maybe 2 of them, I forget, but one in particular. I see it all the time. She's always certain about everything she's saying. She's the expert in the conversation all the time. And half the time I'm like, you don't even know that for sure. So why are you saying it as if you're like certain, So, but I have possibility as part of my design. So it's like, I am always seeing all the possibilities. So it's a funny combination. The throat center, are you trying to attract attention? The G center, are you trying to find love and direction? And that's a big one for me. Mine is completely open. I have no gate activations, so it's all white with no colors coming off of it. And getting to a point where it's, the whole world really talks about pursuing your passions, finding your purpose, blah, 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 blah. And with that open center comes none of that. Like, you have to find a way, if you have that in your chart, to not hate on yourself, or not pressure yourself, or not do anything about trying to figure that out, because that's not who, if you're undefined or open all the way in that center, it's not, it's really funny. It's like you don't know, there's no way to know or have like a preconceived notion of what's going to come next in your life. There just isn't. I mean, there's things that you can have, like I have values, like personal values around things like one of my big ones is freedom and personal autonomy, so I can put sort of like a measurement up to things. Is this going to get me closer to personal autonomy, or is this going to take me further away from it when I'm looking, making decisions? I also have an emotional authority. My personal inner authority is emotional, so that's another component that goes into this stuff. Where if you're bitter and you have the emotional authority, that may just be a wave that you have to just ride out. If you have a different authority than that, if you have let's say a splenic authority, I can't even speak to that because I don't know what it's like. But the point is that you sort of want to become familiar, and this is where this comes into the whole play of doing business as yourself. Become familiar with the energy activations in your own design, and you can begin to see where things are working and why things maybe aren't working in the way that you've been proceeding, the way that often society has decided that you're supposed to go forward. So I was up to G center. So splenic center, there's 9, so I have 5 more to go, and I'm going to end this. Video, hopefully having addressed some of what she was asking me. But I think that the actual question was more like, how can I do my business in a way that gets me as much recognition as this person who's a manifesting generator is or seems to be getting. But anyway, splenic center is, are you holding on to what isn't good for you? The ego center is, are you trying to prove or improve yourself, which is a big one. A lot of people, I think it's something like 70% of the world has an open ego center, which leads to how that turns up, that it shows up in the world, is a lot of people trying to prove that there's something, whatever that is. A lot of energy and just a lot of energy put towards proving things to people and to ourselves that doesn't need to be part of the story. This doesn't need to be that way. Solar plexus center is avoiding. Are you avoiding, if it's undefined? Are you avoiding confrontation and truth? I see this as a big part of my conversations with my husband, or maybe even my arguments with my husband. That's a whole other conversation too, which I'll maybe go there sometime. Sacral center, not knowing do you know when enough is enough, or tendency not to know when enough is enough. And then finally the root center, which the question is, are you always in a pressure? Are you always in a hurry to be free of the pressure of whatever it is that you're feeling pressured around? And there's no way to, or even a need to fix any of this stuff. There is, I think, the possibility of finding workarounds and like personal approaches to dealing with the pressures that we do feel because of these different open areas. And the cool thing is that once we have kind of gotten a handle on that stuff, and even, may I say, I might even say mastered the energy that center is, and feeling all of that stuff and understanding which is our energy, which is other people's energy, and why things might be affecting us that way, we can actually become really, really, really useful, and therefore really, 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 if you want to, wealthy in that conversation, because there's a lot of people suffering who don't understand that how to manage that energy, and it causes a lot of chaos in the world. of any of these centers, and some more than others, and I feel like, but anyway, the question that I think she was actually asking is not necessarily answered in this video, but I think that it's a great question to continue with if it's interesting to you. Now, she and I both have a gate 43, I believe it is, that's part of that design is all about being efficient with energy. So like if nobody says, yeah, let's have that video, let's have that conversation, I may or may not ever have that conversation because it's not efficient for my energy and my time to be talking about things that nobody cares about. You see what I mean? So anyway, I hope that this has been not too confusing if you're not into human design, and totally interesting if you are. And I love this conversation around figuring out basically workarounds for the things that would otherwise be considered hindrances or handicaps or problems. That none of this is a problem. It's just it's a puzzle to solve, and I love this stuff. All right. So if you have not already, go ahead down below here and hit subscribe. The notifications also, if you're interested in getting my videos as they post regularly, at least this month. I'm doing them daily or daily-ish. I'm going to have 30 at the end of this adventure this month. And maybe a habit will be formed and maybe it won't. But the point is that the more questions you ask, the more I have clarity of which direction to be talking in. And if you don't have any questions, I can just go have a nap, right? And that's okay too. Alrighty, so have a great day, and I wish you all the best in all of this. I can't express enough how much this kind of conversation just lights me up, and I'm really excited to be doing it in a format that can be visited by whoever needs it going forward in time, whether I am present or not. Okay, so have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.